In the dimming afternoon light of downtown Portland, Officer James Mercer sat in his patrol car, fingers drumming impatiently against the steering wheel. 15 years on the force had left him with a permanent furrow between his brows and an unwavering belief in his instincts. Today, those instincts were on high alert. His radio crackled with routine chatter as his gaze fixed on the woman across the street. Mid-30s, professionally dressed, nothing outwardly suspicious, yet something felt off. She'd been pacing the same block for 20 minutes, periodically checking her watch and glancing nervously over her shoulder. "Dispatch, this is Unit 417, he said into his radio. "I'm conducting a field interview at Pine and 5th. James stepped out of his vehicle, adjusted his belt, and approached the woman. "Excuse me, ma'am." She startled, nearly dropping her phone. "Yes, officer." "Mind if I ask what you're doing here today?" "Just waiting for someone," she replied, tucking a strand of chestnut hair behind her ear. Her eyes darted to the street corner, then back to him. "May I see some identification, please?" The woman, Sarah Bennett, according to her driver's license, shifted uncomfortably. "Have I done something wrong?" "Just routine," James replied, though it wasn't. Something in her demeanor triggered his suspicion. Years of experience had taught him to recognize the subtle tells of someone hiding something, the slightly elevated breathing, the micro-expressions of anxiety. "You seem nervous, Ms. Bennett." "I'm just running late for an appointment." James ran her ID through the system. No outstanding warrants, no criminal record. But his gut feeling persisted. What kind of appointment requires pacing the same block for 20 minutes? Her eyes widened. "You've been watching me?" "It's my job to observe," he replied evenly. "I'd like you to answer the question." "I'm meeting someone. It's personal." James noticed her fingers trembling slightly. "Ms. Bennett, is there something you'd like to tell me?" "No, nothing," she insisted, her voice rising slightly. "I've done nothing wrong." "Then you wouldn't mind if I searched your bag?" Her face flushed. "Actually, I would mind. Don't I have rights?" That defensive response only confirmed his suspicions. "Step over to my vehicle, please." "This is ridiculous," she protested, but complied. "Put your hands on the hood," James instructed, setting her purse aside. "On what grounds are you detaining me?" "Suspicious behavior in a high-traffic area. There have been reports of drug dealing nearby." This was stretching the truth, but James was convinced something wasn't right. As he began to pat down her jacket pockets, Sarah's phone rang. The screen displayed, "Unknown caller." "Can I answer that?" she asked. "No," James replied curtly, continuing his search. Her phone continued ringing insistently. "Please," she pleaded. "It might be important. It'll have to wait." When the ringing stopped, James noticed tears welling in her eyes. "You don't understand," she whispered. The phone immediately began ringing again. Whoever was calling was persistent. "Officer, I'm begging you." Real fear had crept into her voice. Against protocol, James picked up the phone. "This is Officer Mercer, Portland PD." There was a brief silence, then a man's voice, professional and urgent. "Officer, this is Agent Daniel Whitaker, FBI. Badge number 7729. I need to speak with Sarah Bennett immediately." James's posture stiffened. "Can I verify that, sir?" "Call the Portland field office at 503-224-4181 and ask for confirmation on Operation Mockingbird. While you do that, please put Ms. Bennett on the phone. This is a matter of national security." James hesitated, then handed Sarah the phone, watching her intently as she spoke. "Yes. Yes. Understood," she said, her expression transforming from fear to determination. "I'll be there." She handed the phone back to James. "Officer Mercer," the agent's voice returned. "Ms. Bennett is working with us on a sensitive undercover operation. I apologize for the confusion, but I need you to release her immediately." "I'll need verification, sir." "Of course. I'm sending authorization codes to your dispatch now. In the meantime, Ms. Bennett needs to proceed to her destination without further delay. Lives may depend on it." Within moments, James's radio crackled. "Unit 417, this is dispatch. We've received FBI confirmation regarding your current stop. You're instructed to release the subject immediately." James stared at Sarah with new understanding. "You're undercover?" She neither confirmed nor denied, simply asking, "May I go now, officer?" He nodded slowly, returning her belongings. "I apologize for the inconvenience, ma'am." As she walked away, James couldn't shake the feeling that he'd just brushed against something much bigger than a routine patrol stop. He had no idea how right he was. Sarah Bennett wasn't her real name. It was Catherine Harlow, and she hadn't been working for the FBI, at least not officially. She'd been a data analyst at Bremen Financial for 8 years when she discovered discrepancies in certain international accounts, small inconsistencies that, when pieced together, revealed a pattern of money laundering for a network of domestic terrorists. When she'd taken her findings to her supervisor, he'd smiled, thanked her for her diligence, and promised to look into it. 2 days later, her apartment had been broken into, though nothing was visibly taken. The message was clear. Catherine had contacted an old college friend who now worked at the FBI. Within days, she was unofficially feeding information to a small task force while maintaining her position at Bremen. The appointment she'd been waiting for was with her handler to deliver a flash drive containing transaction records that could unravel the entire operation. The call that had saved her from Officer Mercer's well-intentioned interference hadn't come from Agent Whitaker. It had come from Bremen's head of security, Marcus Vega, who was deeply involved in the laundering scheme. Catherine's delay had triggered suspicion, and Vega had called to check her whereabouts. Her quick thinking, pretending the officer was already talking to the FBI, had saved her cover and possibly her life. Now she was walking toward the real meeting point, her heart pounding against her ribs with each step. At Bremen Financial's gleaming downtown headquarters, Marcus Vega ended the call and turned to the man seated across from his desk. "She's with a cop," he reported, his voice flat. Richard Bremen, the company's CEO and grandson of its founder, barely looked up from his tablet. "Problem?" she said. The officer was already speaking with Whitaker when he answered. "That seems convenient." Richard set down his device, finally meeting Vega's gaze. "You think she's working with them?" "I think it's time we accelerated our timeline." Richard nodded slowly. "The accounts? I can have them cleared by morning. The Pittsburgh operation needs to be moved up. Make the calls." Richard returned to his tablet. "And Marcus? Find out exactly what Catherine has been up to these past weeks. Every meeting, every call, every file she's accessed. And if she's compromised." Richard's eyes remained cold. "Handle it." Agent Daniel Whitaker was not pleased. The operation had nearly been derailed by an overzealous patrol officer, and now their informant was running late. He checked his watch again as he sat in the back corner of Powell's bookstore cafe, newspaper open but unread before him. When Catherine finally appeared, navigating through the maze of bookshelves toward him, he could see the strain on her face. "I was nearly arrested," she said without preamble, sliding into the seat across from him. "I know. You handled it well." He slid a coffee toward her. "The officer called it in. Our people intercepted and provided verification. That was fast thinking. That's the job." Whitaker kept his voice low. "Do you have it?" Catherine nodded almost imperceptibly, reaching into her bag and passing a travel guide across the table. Tucked between its pages was the flash drive. "It's all there. Transaction records, account numbers, correspondence. Bremen himself is involved, along with at least 3 board members." Whitaker's expression remained neutral as he accepted the book. "And they don't suspect?" Vega called while the officer was detaining me. "I think they're watching me more closely than before. Then we need to move you to safety. Tonight." Catherine shook her head. "Not yet. There's something else happening, something big. I overheard Bremen talking about Pittsburgh, some kind of operation being moved up." Whitaker's posture changed subtly, his attention sharpening. "When?" "I don't know exactly. But soon, within days. We need details, Catherine. I know. I can get back into the secure server tonight. Nobody will be at the office." Whitaker frowned. "It's too risky. We have enough to move on Bremen. Not if you want to stop whatever they're planning in Pittsburgh." Catherine leaned forward. "This isn't just about money laundering anymore. They're funding something terrible, and it's imminent." After a moment's consideration, Whitaker nodded. "One more night. Then we extract you regardless of what you find." "Understood?" "Understood." Neither noticed the man 2 tables over, ostensibly absorbed in his laptop, who had been watching their interaction with practiced disinterest. Officer James Mercer couldn't shake his unease as he finished his shift. The FBI intervention had been legitimate. He'd verified it himself, but something still felt off about the encounter with Sarah Bennett, or whoever she really was. Instead of heading home, he drove past Bremen Financial's building. It was just curiosity, he told himself, nothing more. The 20-story glass structure was mostly dark at this hour, just security lighting and a few scattered offices still illuminated. As he circled the block, he noticed a familiar figure entering the building, Sarah Bennett, using a key card at the employee entrance. So she worked there. Interesting. James parked his personal vehicle and decided to wait. Whatever was happening, his instincts told him the woman was in danger, FBI protection or not. Catherine moved through the darkened office with practiced ease. At this hour, only security guards remained, making their predictable rounds. She had 20 minutes before the next patrol would pass by her department. She accessed her computer using the special login credentials that bypassed the company's monitoring systems, a gift from Whitaker's technical team. Within moments, she was navigating through restricted servers, searching for any mention of Pittsburgh. It took precious minutes to find it. A folder labeled simply PGH 527, hidden within layers of encrypted files. Inside were operational details that made her blood run cold. Not just money laundering, but the financing of a coordinated domestic terror attack planned for the city's light rail system. Projected casualties, 500 plus. The date, tomorrow. Catherine downloaded everything, hands trembling as she copied the files. They'd been moving money for years, building toward this moment, a false flag operation designed to destabilize financial markets and create opportunity for massive profit through pre-positioned investments. As she finished the download and removed the drive, the office lights suddenly flicked on. Working late, Catherine. Marcus Vega stood in the doorway, his massive frame blocking her exit. Behind him stood 2 security guards, just catching up on some reports, she replied, trying to keep her voice steady as she subtly slipped the drive into her pocket. Funny, the system shows you accessing some interesting files you shouldn't even know exist. Catherine's mind raced. I think there's been a mistake. I was just... No more lies, Vega cut her off, stepping into the room. We know about your meetings with Whitaker. We know about the drive you passed him today. Her heart sank. They had been watching. Richard is disappointed. Vega gestured to the guards. Bring her to the conference room. When Catherine didn't emerge from the building after an hour, Officer James Mercer knew something was wrong. He debated calling for backup but hesitated. What exactly would he report? That a woman he'd incorrectly tried to arrest earlier, who was apparently working with the FBI, had entered her legitimate workplace and not come out. Instead, he made his way to the building's entrance and approached the security desk, showing his badge. Portland PD, he said to the startled guard. I need to speak with a Sarah Bennett, or possibly she goes by another name here. The guard checked his computer. No Sarah Bennett employed here, sir. Woman in her 30s, brown hair, about 5'7". Came in about an hour ago. Recognition flickered across the guard's face. You might mean Ms. Harlow, Catherine Harlow. Is she still in the building? The guard checked the system. Yes, her key card shows she's on the executive floor, conference room A. I need to go up there. I'm sorry, officer, but I can't allow that without authorization. It's after hours. James leaned in closer. Look, I have reason to believe she might be in danger. FBI matter. Call it in if you want, but I need to go up there now. After a moment's hesitation, the guard nodded and issued a visitor badge. Elevators are to your right. Executive floor is 19. In the sleek conference room overlooking the city, Catherine sat rigidly across from Richard Bremen. Between them on the polished table lay her employee badge, her phone, and her purse, which had been thoroughly searched. I expected more loyalty, Catherine, Bremen said, studying her with detached curiosity. 8 years with the company, consistent promotions, excellent performance reviews. I was loyal, she replied, surprising herself with her steady voice. Loyal to the law. Bremen smiled thinly. The law is malleable. It bends for those who understand power. And Pittsburgh, is murdering hundreds of innocent people just another demonstration of power? Collateral damage in a necessary restructuring. Bremen glanced at Vega, who stood by the door. Did you find the second drive? Nothing on her. Nothing in her desk or computer. Bremen turned back to Catherine. Where is it? I don't know what you're talking about. The files you accessed tonight. Our system logs everything, Catherine. She maintained her silence, mind racing. The drive was still in her pocket, but it would only be a matter of time before they searched her thoroughly. Bremen sighed. We can do this easily or with difficulty. The outcome will be the same. The operation will proceed, and you won't be a factor. People will die, Catherine said quietly. Progress requires sacrifice. The conference room door suddenly swung open, and a security guard appeared, looking anxious. Sir, there's a police officer here. Says he needs to speak with Ms. Harlow. Bremen and Vega exchanged glances. I didn't call anyone, the guard continued nervously. He just showed up at the front desk. Bremen's expression remained calm. Send him in. Marcus, make sure our guest understands the importance of discretion. Vega moved behind Catherine, placing a warning hand on her shoulder as Officer James Mercer entered the room. James took in the scene instantly, the woman from earlier, now identified as Catherine Harlow, seated at the conference table with two men who radiated authority and danger. The larger man's hand on her shoulder wasn't friendly. It was controlling. Evening, James said, projecting casual confidence. Sorry to interrupt so late. The older man rose, extending his hand. Richard Bremen, CEO, how can we help Portland's finest tonight? James shook his hand briefly. Officer James Mercer, I need to speak with Ms. Harlow regarding an incident from earlier today. Of course, though I'm curious why this couldn't wait until morning. FBI matter, James replied simply, watching their reactions. The larger man's grip on Catherine's shoulder tightened slightly. Ms. Harlow, would you mind stepping outside with me for a moment? Before she could answer, Bremen interjected smoothly. Actually, we're in the middle of a sensitive company matter. Perhaps you could come back tomorrow. I'm afraid this can't wait. James maintained eye contact with Catherine, trying to communicate that he understood her predicament. Ms. Harlow? She stays, the larger man said firmly. James's hand casually moved closer to his service weapon. And you are? Marcus Vega, head of security. Well, Mr. Vega, unless Ms. Harlow is being detained for a crime, she's free to speak with me. Is she being detained? The tension in the room was palpable. Catherine's eyes darted between the men. Bremen broke the silence. Of course not, officer. Catherine is free to speak with you. Marcus, please give them some space. Vega reluctantly stepped back, his expression darkening. Actually, James said, I'd prefer to speak with Ms. Harlow privately. Police business. After a moment's calculation, Bremen nodded. Use the office across the hall. Marcus and I will wait here. James escorted Catherine from the room, feeling Vega's eyes boring into his back as they crossed the hallway. They know everything, Catherine whispered urgently once they were alone in the adjacent office. They know I've been working with the FBI. They're planning an attack in Pittsburgh tomorrow. Hundreds of people will die. James processed this rapidly. Are you in immediate danger? Yes. They were about to search me for this. She produced the flash drive from her pocket. It has everything, the entire operation, the attack plans, financial records. We need to get it to Agent Whitaker. We need to get you out first. Are there other exits besides the main elevator? Service elevator at the back of the floor and an emergency stairwell. James nodded. Give me the drive. If something happens to you, this evidence needs to reach the FBI. Catherine handed it over, watching as he secured it in his inner pocket. Why are you helping me? You were going to arrest me earlier. I was wrong earlier, but my instincts were right about one thing. You were in trouble. A knock at the door interrupted them. Vega's voice came through. Officer, is everything all right? Mr. Bremen would like to wrap this up. One moment, James called back, then lowered his voice. Follow my lead. He opened the door to find Vega filling the doorway, barely concealing his impatience. All done, James said pleasantly. Ms. Harlow has been very helpful. I just need her to sign this statement and we'll be finished. He held up his notepad as if it contained an official document. You can do that in the conference room, Vega insisted. Actually, Catherine interjected, finding her courage. I need to use the restroom first, if that's all right. It's been a long meeting. Vega's jaw tightened, but he stepped aside reluctantly. Don't be long. Catherine moved past him toward the restrooms located near the service elevator, exactly where they needed to go. James followed a few steps behind, keeping himself between her and Vega. As they rounded the corner out of sight, James whispered, "Run." They sprinted toward the service elevator, but the doors to the stairwell burst open before they reached it. Two security guards emerged, clearly responding to silent instructions from Vega. This way. Catherine pulled James down an adjacent hallway as shouts erupted behind them. They ducked into a darkened office, breathing hard. The main elevator is our only option now, she whispered. James peered through the door crack, seeing Vega directing the guards to search each room systematically. We won't make it that way either. Catherine's eyes suddenly lit up. The window washing platform. There's a maintenance access point in the janitorial closet. Richard Bremen watched the security monitors with growing frustration as his guards searched empty offices. The police officer and Catherine had vanished somewhere on the floor. Find them, he snapped into his phone. And initiate the contingency protocol for Pittsburgh. Move everything up to first light. He ended the call and stared at the screens. This night had become a cascading failure, but he hadn't built his empire by allowing setbacks to become defeats. If Catherine escaped with evidence, he would be in federal custody by morning. That was unacceptable. Bremen opened his desk drawer and removed a small handgun. Some problems required direct solutions. The window washing platform swayed precariously in the night wind 19 stories above the street. Catherine clung to the safety railing as James worked the manual controls. Can you lower us all the way down? She asked, trying not to look at the dizzying drop below. The platform only services 10 floors at a time, James explained, but we can reach the fire escape on the 9th floor. From there, we can make it to the ground. The metal platform jolted and began its slow descent along the glass face of the building. They'd made it nearly 3 floors down when a noise above them made them both look up. Richard Bremen was leaning out of the access hatch they'd used, pointing a gun directly at them. "Stop the platform, Officer Mercer," he called out, his voice eerily calm against the whipping wind. James positioned himself in front of Catherine. "It's over, Bremen. The FBI already has enough evidence." "Not quite everything." Bremen's aim remained steady. "The drive, please." "Don't do this," Catherine pleaded. "There are innocent lives at stake." "The drive," Bremen repeated, "or I start shooting. Physics will do the rest." He gestured toward the thin cable supporting the platform. James seemed to consider his options, then slowly reached into his jacket. "All right, no need for anyone to get hurt." As he produced the flash drive, Bremen smiled triumphantly, until James suddenly hurled it out into the darkness, far beyond the building's perimeter. Bremen's face contorted in fury. He steadied his aim at James's chest. The gunshot cracked through the night air, but it wasn't from Bremen's weapon. The CEO jerked backward, disappearing from the access hatch with a surprised expression. Agent Whitaker appeared in his place, holstering his weapon. "You two all right down there?" The next morning, Catherine sat wrapped in a blanket in a secure FBI facility, a cup of untouched coffee cooling before her. The news played on a television mounted on the wall, breaking reports about the arrest of Richard Bremen, the emergency evacuation of Pittsburgh's light rail system, and the largest domestic terrorism prevention operation in recent history. Agent Whitaker entered, looking like he hadn't slept. "The strike teams found the explosives exactly where your data indicated. They've all been neutralized." Catherine nodded, relief washing over her. "And Bremen?" "Recovering from a shoulder wound in federal custody. Vega too. The company's being dismantled as we speak. 17 arrests so far, with more coming." She turned to Officer James Mercer, who sat nearby. "And the flash drive you threw?" James smiled slightly. "Empty USB drive from my pocket. The real one was still safe in my inner jacket pocket." "Quick thinking," Whitaker acknowledged. "The Bureau could use people with your instincts, officer." "I'm happy where I am," James replied. though I might be more careful about who I stop on the street from now on. Catherine managed a tired smile. If you hadn't stopped me, if that call hadn't come when it did. She didn't finish the thought. Some mistakes turn out to be exactly what's needed, James said quietly. Whitaker's phone buzzed. He checked it and looked up with satisfaction. Pittsburgh is officially secure. Hundreds of lives saved. Catherine finally took a sip of her cold coffee, the reality of what they'd accomplished beginning to sink in. A chance encounter, an officer's persistent instinct, and a perfectly timed phone call had changed everything. Not just for her, but for hundreds of unsuspecting people who would never know how close they'd come to tragedy.